Hey there, it's Mackenzie, your host of Winning. We're looking for sponsors for the podcast. If you have a business that you would like to promote to thousands of people, send us an email at podcastwinning@gmail.com or send us a message on social media. I cannot wait to hear from you. Now on to the show.
Winning is your guide to making it in business. Join our award-winning host and entrepreneur, Mackenzie Kilshaw, and special guests in casual conversations that will educate and inspire you on your business journey. Winning will help you learn the hard lessons the easy way with guidance from celebrated entrepreneurs and business leaders. It's fun. It's informative. It's winning.
Hello, welcome to Winning. I am your host, Mackenzie Kilshaw, and today's guest is Crystal MacLeod. Hi, Crystal.
Hi, Mackenzie. Happy to be here.
I know. I'm so excited to have you on. We always talked before, and Crystal and I are like, we should have pressed record like twice probably. So here we actually go. Crystal is a 5-time national award-winning event planner whose work has been featured in magazine. She's also given her expert advice on CBC Radio, CTV News, Global News, and in the Star Phoenix, which is Saskatoon's newspaper. When I read this, she has executed over 600 weddings and corporate events. I actually almost fell over because 600 is a lot. Yeah, that is a lot. And her creativity and the wow factor that she brings into every event is really what sets her apart. And I've been to so many events that Crystal has planned, and I can tell you they are amazing. You think of every little detail. I guess that's experience.
Yeah, absolutely. When you've done, it's actually now closer to 800 events. Actually, I should have updated.
Well, I will update that.
But it is getting, yeah, it is getting closer to 800. And yeah, when you've done that many events, for sure, details that you're repeating over and over again, they just come to your mind.
That's so cool. Crystal, why don't you, I gave you a little bio, but really, why don't you tell the audience kind of a little bit more about yourself and how did you get to doing 800 events? Because that is amazing.
Yeah, my entrepreneurial story is well, actually, it's a little bit dramatic. So I was a dance teacher and I taught dance for 10 years, I guess. But I always wanted to be an event planner. That was always in the back of my mind as like my dream job. I just didn't think it was an actual job. I didn't think it was something, I knew it was a job, but I didn't think it was something that you could do as a career in Saskatchewan. I didn't think you could actually get paid to do that. So another interest of mine was broadcast journalism. I was ready to leave the dance world and wanted to be an event planner. Didn't think that was a thing. Other thing I considered was broadcast journalism. So I applied to broadcast journalism school in Calgary. I was accepted. I was ready to move to Calgary. I was engaged at the time, and my husband was diagnosed with, my husband-to-be, my fiance, was diagnosed with cancer. So we had to rethink what we were doing. So he's going through treatment. We postponed our wedding while he was, supposed to be going through treatment and getting better. And then he became terminally ill. So we got married really quickly. He passed away a month after we got married. And I was supposed to be moving to Calgary at that same time. I was in no position to move to Calgary at that time. I, was trying to figure out my life and a new life without him. So they held my position at the school in Calgary for the year. I was going to kind of take the year and then I was going to move to Calgary, go to school. The whole time in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, I actually want to be an event planner.
What am I doing?
Still not thinking that this is an option. So the year comes and goes and it's time for me again to move to Calgary. And I just couldn't do it. There was just something that was stopping me. So I cold called Tammy Forrester, who was the owner of RSVP Event Design at the time. We met and hit it off instantly. When you just connect with somebody, we just connected immediately. Yep. She hired me on the spot. started working for her. A year later, she invited me to be her partner. So we became business partners. Eventually, Tammy left the company. She's now the CEO of Ronald McDonald House of Saskatchewan.
I never knew this. Okay, first of all, I've known you for many years. I never knew this story. Yeah. So I'm just like, I'm like listener, just really, I never knew this. That's so cool. Tammy's awesome. And
Tammy's an incredible, incredible person. She has taught me everything that I know about being a business owner and being an event planner. I learned so much from Tammy. She is my mentor, and we are still very close. I still reach out to her sometimes in tears. Tammy, what do I do?
Yeah.
And she hasn't officially been a part of the company for many years, like 12 years or something, but I still keep her picture on our website as our founder because she just deserves that recognition because she is the one that created RSVP. So my entrepreneurial story was, it's dramatic, I guess. I mean, it was taking something, very difficult. It was taking something very sad. It was taking something life-changing to make me, step out and fulfill my dream. Again, it sounds very dramatic. It is kind of dramatic, but that is how I came to be an event planner.
Yeah, it's just so kind of crazy, I think, to when a huge life-changing moment like that happens, you can kind of take two paths, right? You can take the I'm just staying where I am and never doing anything because grief can kind of take over your life, or you can go the path that you took and you knew that the broadcasting wasn't really for you. Even though you were interested in it, you knew, right? And look what you've done. I mean, you have, like, you're nationally acclaimed. Like, clearly this is the path that you were supposed to be on.
This is the path that I was supposed to be on. And it all unfolds the way that it is supposed to unfold. So everything, there were certainly a lot of skills in the dance world that were transferable to event planning. Putting on a recital or a show is putting on an event.
Yeah.
So a lot of the skills were things that I utilize all the time in events. And also the, creating, because we create experiences, right? And we create moments for people. And I love creating beautiful things. Like I loved creating beautiful dances and beautiful shows. I love creating beautiful events. So it all leads you to, the place that you're supposed to be. So I am remarried and I'm happily married to my husband, Mark, and we have 2 children, Ellie and Anderson. And after my first husband passed away, I said 3 things. I said I wanted to be married happily again, and I wanted 2 children. I even said I wanted a boy and a girl, and that's what I have. And I said I wanted to own an event planning company, and I'm here.
Yeah, exactly. Usually what you put out into the universe, you get back. We were talking about that before, but it is true, right? When you envision something, and you could have said, no, I can't do the event stuff. I have to go to become a broadcast journalist, and went that path. And probably you wouldn't have met Mark and had, your life would have been so much different.
Yeah.
But you're where you want to be, which is really what entrepreneurship is about, right? It's the lifestyle that you want, and you're doing something you love every day.
I truly am. I truly love what I do. Like my husband and I will joke around about like, if you won the lottery and like, what would you do and things like that. And I'm like, I kind of feel like I would still want to do events, but like maybe not as many or something. But like, I cannot imagine a life where I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
And we were talking before we started recording, but it's the relationships. Like events have brought so many incredible people into my life.
Yeah.
And I get to celebrate moments with people and all kinds of moments, right? Like we do weddings and we do corporate events, and we do galas, and, doing the nonprofit gala for the nonprofit organization, that everything, it means everything to that organization, right? Raising funds for their organization that they believe in, that they care about so much, is just as important as helping a bride get down the aisle to get married on one of the most important days of her life, right?
Oh, exactly.
So all of these moments, I get to celebrate and help people celebrate beautiful moments in their life. We've got to do even some like memorials, not necessarily funerals, but memorials.
Yep.
And what a privilege that is, to get to create a beautiful experience for people as they are honoring somebody. So I love my job. I still love my job. If I get to the point where I don't love my job anymore, then I will absolutely have to stop, because it's too stressful of a job to keep doing if you don't love it. So.
Well, I was going to say, because I've planned events, nothing to the scale that you have done. Although I did say I could be a wedding planner, because I did have to replan my wedding because I got married during COVID. So I had to replan my wedding about 10 times. But if you've never planned an event, honestly, you have no idea everything that goes into it. It's not just, some pretty floral arrangements and tablecloths. That is a minuscule little tiny portion of it, right?
Yeah, I always say that people think our job is about the pretty, and it's 10% pretty, 90% logistics and spreadsheets.
Yeah.
I spend just as much time on delivery schedules as I do picking out flowers for a wedding. Like, it's just as complicated as the flowers.
Yeah.
More so, probably, right? And that's the glamorous side of it.
That's right. People wouldn't think about it, because all they're thinking is, oh, you get to go and you get to pick out the flowers with the bride, and then the flowers just arrive, and and you put them on the tables or whatever it is. But really, they don't just arrive. You have to plan that too.
That's jokingly what I say to brides, is like, you're not going to know how they get there, or what time they got there, or how we got them through the door, or how we moved them from one place to the other. You're just going to show up and they're just magically going to be there. Yeah. But it takes a lot of planning to magically get them there.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And I think that's the thing. People see you at events and they see you, making sure that everything's as it should be, but they don't realize everything, not just that day, like months ahead, right? That you're working on it.
Yeah, absolutely. It is the planning of everything. So it's not just what does a wedding, when I meet with a couple for the first time, I say to them, like, what's your vision for the day? But not just aesthetically, like, not just what you want it to look like. What do you want it to feel like? Yes. Right? What do you want your guests to experience? What are those moments that have meaning to you? And that's more than flowers and a pretty tablecloth, right? There's a lot of other elements that are involved there.
Yeah, exactly. And whether it's a wedding or a corporate event, it's all the same, right? Because at your corporate event, whether that's a gala or that's, a big event that a company's doing or something, that's as important to them, right?
Absolutely. And I say, like I get asked all the time, like, what do you prefer, weddings or corporate events? I love like galas. I love the glitz and the glam and making things beautiful and just making a beautiful experience for people. I don't do a lot of conferences. That's just not my area of interest for events. But a gala is very similar to a wedding. Like, all of the elements are there. You have people, you have food, you have music, you have flowers, you have decor. Like, they are very, very similar. And the emotional part of it is just as significant sometimes, right? Oh, yeah. For, again, the nonprofit, they are invested 100%, just as, the family is, and the bride and the groom, or the grooms or the brides or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Once again, before we started recording, we talked about COVID. I owned clothing stores. No one was shopping. You have an event planning company. I shouldn't say no one was getting married, because there was events and there was things, but that would have been so difficult because you kind of had to press the pause button, didn't you?
We did. Yeah. COVID, it kind of feels like this fog of like,
Yes.
oh, right. What happened? Like, and you came through on the other side and it was like you were in battle and we survived. But it was, it was scary. It was just the uncertainty.
Yeah.
That was the part of it, right? I remember I was in Vegas actually for an event planning conference when the shutdown first happened. And I'm in the airport and I had an event, a gala the next weekend, and I'm getting phone calls that it's going to be canceled. And I'm like,
What?
Like, what are you talking about? Like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
And then more phone calls are coming in and more emails. And I'm like, oh, wow, like this is actually
real.
This is happening. This is real.
Yep.
This is happening. And I remember saying like, okay, well, if, we're just shut down for, kind of my projections for the year. And it's like, okay, well, if just these months shut down, then we're fine. And then it's like, and this month, and this month, and this month, and you keep adding on. I will say that I thought there were a lot of initiatives in place for small businesses that the government helped out, and that really helped me tremendously. For a very long time, though, I didn't have to lay anybody off, and I kept them at their full salary. That's wasn't awesome. Until like the second lockdown kind of happened. I think, again, this is kind of a blur, so trying to remember how it all went down. So we were able to do like a few events, and weddings, came back first. I think the corporate events, those were a little bit slower. And then 2022 happened, and it was insane because we had all of these contracts to fulfill of people that had been, like yourself, postponing their wedding 3, 4, or 5 times,
Yeah.
So 2022 was just off the charts. It was crazy. It was so great to be back, celebrating with people again. And we did like a Friday wedding, Saturday wedding, Sunday wedding. We were just like busy, busy, busy. And then corporate events in 2023, I feel like really came back strong. So now we're just kind of back to normal, whatever normal is.
I know. It's like the other day I was talking to someone and I'm like, it's like it was, if you've ever had surgery and you wake up from surgery and you're like, I know I'm here, but what up? Where am I? Whatever. That's kind of what COVID felt like,
It was.
It's like you remember.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. Like you remember it. Like I remember it, but I'm like, I can't tell you what happened there. Like I'm the same as you. I was so fortunate to get the rent subsidies and the employee wage subsidy, a subsidy for myself, because that's my income, right? Mm-hmm. Pay myself. And to be truthful with you, if those things wouldn't have been there, I really don't think my business would have survived. And I think that's the same for many, many people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. For me, it was day-to-day life because we have 2 children. So my husband is a teacher. So he was teaching from home, trying to do the online teaching. And we had our son was in grade 2. So we were trying to teach him, be his teacher. And then our daughter's daycare shut down. So we had no childcare. And I was postponing and canceling 50 something events. And we had no help with our kids.
Yeah.
So it was like both Mark and I having these full-time jobs. Our daughter was 3. So it's not like you can just, say, go do something. Like she was 3, right?
Yeah.
And then our son, we're supposed to be teaching him. We're supposed to be doing the online school thing. So it felt like we had like 5 full-time jobs.
Yeah.
So the day-to-day life, that was really difficult. Maybe even more so than the uncertainty of everything that was happening with my business. But yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think many, many people worked harder in that COVID year. I'll say year, But, it really was a year until things and I don't even know what normal is really anymore. But
Yeah.
that COVID year, I think, was harder for many people than when they first started out, right?
Oh,
Because
yeah.
when you first start out, you don't know what's going to happen. So you just take everything as it is. Okay, this happened. What are we going to do, right? Good or bad? But then once you're a really well-oiled machine, right? Like you knew what you were doing. You had done it for many years. And all of a sudden it was just like a hard stop, right? And then you
Mhm.
have all these other things that you have to do. But for you too, like you still had to maintain those relationships with people. You still had to answer questions. You still, people are like, okay, well, maybe we're not going to do what we initially said. We're going to change now because we just want to be married and that's that, or whatever it is, right? So you had a lot happening.
Yeah, and the emotional part of it as well for all my couples, like just trying to be there for them, and I don't have the answers. They knew just as much as I did.
Yeah.
It's not like the government was like giving us the, heads up of anything that was coming. Like I was planning one wedding when the second lockdown happened, and we found out the week before that we couldn't serve food in the area that we needed to. So it was like, okay, or it was like 5 days out from the wedding or something like that. So it's like, okay, the rules changed again. Let's
Yeah.
figure this out. So
Yeah, a lot of problem solving for sure.
yeah.
I feel like you probably do a lot of problem solving, and I don't know that people even realize it. But when you are dealing with weddings and big events, there are things like that come up, right? And you have to figure it out because you can't go to the bride and say, "Oh, we can't serve food there, so I guess sorry." You have to figure it out.
Yeah. It's really problem solving. I I think over the years, but I also think it is a part of my personality. I don't get panicked very easily. Like I know there's always a solution for everything.
Yeah.
There really is. There's a solution for everything. So as long as you can, and experience too. I mean, well, sometimes I say just when I think I've seen and done it all, then all of a sudden something new happens, and it's like, oh boy, well, like a pandemic, like didn't see that one coming.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
it's just being able to pivot, and at the end of the day, that's what it is. It's solving problems.
Yeah, exactly. And in all reality, all entrepreneurs and small business,
Mhm.
that's your job. It's just solving a problem or taking something and making it an opportunity, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
I want to chat a little bit about downsizing because I know that
Mhm.
you've talked about this before, that you actually did downsize. So let's talk about that. And first of all, why did you choose that path? And yeah, let's start there. What
Yeah.
did you do to downsize, and why did you choose that?
So, so years ago, I mean, we are in now going into our 26th year of business as RSVP. So a lot happens, right? In 26 years, you
Yeah.
evolve and you change and your focus changes. Um, when I came on board, we were a big company. There was, 6 full-time planners. We had a storefront. We did rentals, and there was, we did corporate events and we did weddings and we did conferences and we did like all kinds of events. So when one of my business partners chose to leave the company, it was like, okay, let's figure out what I want the company to look like and what do I want my life to look like.
Yes.
So I don't enjoy managing people. It's not one of the parts of owning a business that I really enjoy doing. So now I have a manager to do all of that aspect of the business. So it's like we were having all these full-time planners and we were planning all of these events and we had this huge storefront, this huge space. We were paying all of this rent. And I'm like, I don't want to have all of these employees because that's not the part of my business that I like.
Yeah.
I don't want to plan things like conferences and outdoor festivals, and we were doing that. Tammy was great at it. It was not what I enjoyed doing. So I'm doing events to pay staff I don't necessarily want to have, to be in a space where I have to have, 9 to 5 hours. So I have to have somebody there. And so I don't have the flexibility either. It's like, this is not working. And I have a young family, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, how do I work smarter and not harder? So really focusing in on the events that I loved doing. I love doing weddings. I love doing galas. I love the glitz and the glam and making things look beautiful. I don't love doing conferences. So let's stop doing those kind of events. Let's downsize our staff, because if we're, booking these events to pay the staff I don't necessarily want to have, well, now that I don't have those events, I don't need this staff. So we can downsize that. And then having the storefront with the rentals. So the rentals are still a part of our business, but now we only rent to the clients that we're planning events for. Whereas before we rented like to the general public. They could come and rent a cake stand from us or whatever. So now I didn't have to have this storefront and these hours. And I got an offsite storage unit and bought an office downtown in the 2nd Avenue lofts. So now I had an investment instead of, paying the rent. And we were paying a lot of rent at the time. So anyhow, all of these things happened and I was working less. And I'm like, I have less overhead now and I'm working less and I'm making more money.
Yeah.
This is amazing. Like, this is amazing.
Before you did it, were you scared? Were you like, I want to do this and I think we have to, but I'm terrified? Yeah.
Terrified. Absolutely terrified, because it was like, we're going to start saying no to events. We're going to start saying no to business. Like, that goes against everything as an entrepreneur in your core.
Yeah.
You don't say no to potential business, right? Now I say no all the time. Like, even more so than like now it's even from when we downsized to where we are at now. Now it's like, if I feel like I am not a good fit for an event, I am the first person to say, I don't think I'm the right person for this event, but I know some other people that are, and I'm more than happy, and I do it all the time. Go and, this person is great for this. I'm not your girl. I'm not your girl for this.
Isn't it crazy how it's like, you learn that, right? Like when you first start out, you're, I'll do this. Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, for sure. Because you become kind of a yes man, because you're like, I can't say no, because then they'll never ask me again, or I'll lose that group of people or whatever it is. But you realize, like you said yourself, you were more profitable and you worked less. That's the dream of every entrepreneur, right?
It is. It was like, where we're at now and where we've been at different points. It's like, oh my gosh, this is what I wanted my life to look like. Yeah. So taking it even then the next step further, I sold my office downtown in the 2nd Avenue lofts, and then my husband and I built the home that we're in now with a separate entrance for our clients. So I moved the office, and I said I would never have a home-based business. I would never do that. Never say never.
Yeah.
Because I was,
here I am.
I had this. Exactly. So I had this office, which was downtown. So I'm, we're in Saskatoon. It doesn't take that long to drive, but I'm driving, back and forth downtown. And only 50% of my clientele is really coming to the office. So it was just my wedding clients, because I'm always going to the corporate client.
Yeah, of course.
So I'm like, I have this, expensive space, and I'm driving back and forth, yet I'm only meeting with wedding clients there. Let's think about this. How could we downsize, even further?
Yeah.
So we did. So we built this house. It has a separate entrance. It's a really nice, big office. And it has worked brilliantly. So downsizing again. And then COVID hit. a year and a half after we moved into this space and into our home. And I was like, oh, I didn't know that was even a better move. I didn't know there was a pandemic coming. So really glad I did that when I did.
Interestingly enough, I remember when you moved, because Crystal and I actually lived not even a block from each other. And I remember when you said we're building this home and moving, and I thought that was so exciting. And yeah, like, I mean, you never would have known COVID was going to happen, but imagine if you still had that space, and I mean, you're still paying your mortgage for that space, and you couldn't even have any events. Like,
yeah,
that
would have been, we could have been in a very different situation.
Yeah.
Your AirPod just fell. We could have been in a really different situation, right, than what we ended up in. So it, again, it all works out the way that it is supposed to work out in the end.
Exactly. And I love how, I mean, so many people too are, I know other business people I've talked to are like, well, I'm going to buy a building and then I'm going to have my office in that building. And I'm like, okay. And one, for example, was a realtor on her own. And I said, do you need a building? Like, it's just you know, you're probably, if you want to buy the building as an investment, you're probably better off to buy it and rent it out to somebody else, because there's just you in the office. And, you know, and sometimes it just doesn't make sense. And it might be a good investment or a good idea, but for your business model, it just doesn't work. Same as when Tammy left RSVP and you took over, your business model actually changed. Whether you said it did or not, it did, because you didn't want to do those corporate events. You didn't want the rental space. And so you actually changed your entire business model. And look how well it turned out for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, business models, like they have to evolve, right?
Yeah.
You have to change. Things are going to change. It's like, we've been in business for 26 years. It's not remotely realistic to think that what we started out with is going to be where we're at right now.
Exactly.
And yeah, like the quality of my life and being able to say no to events. And sometimes we were talking about this again before we started recording, is like, sometimes you're in the season of your business where you're like, okay, I'm energized right now. I'm giving 110% and I want to, really focus on this aspect or whatever. And then sometimes you feel like, you know what? I don't have that energy right now.
Yep.
So downsizing gave me that freedom where it's like, okay, I don't have all of this overhead. So if I choose to not do these events, I'm still going to be okay, because I'm not, paying all the things that we were paying before.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
we're really lucky. So we're really lucky also in that we do a lot of repeat corporate events. So the very first clients we had 26 years ago, we still do that same event. So
it's amazing.
That is, it's amazing. I'm really proud of that. Like, this was, obviously Tammy's first client is an event that I still do 26 years later. And the only years we missed, obviously, were the 2 COVID years.
Yeah.
So having those repeat corporate events are really important to me, because I kind of know what's coming for, obviously weddings are all new every year, but with the repeat corporate events, it's great. And once my kids get a little bit older, if I want to grow my business, I could. Right now I could, because I don't do any advertising. Actually, I do like zero.
You don't have to, though.
Because I don't wish to take on more events.
Yeah.
At this point, growth is not my focus right now. It is just not my focus. And I don't want to bring on more staff. And I myself don't want to be doing more events than what I'm doing. When my kids are a little bit older, maybe it will. Never say never. But for the moment, I am really happy with where I'm at in terms of as busy as I want this business to be.
Yeah. And I think the thing too is growth. Like, we all just kind of have in our mind, growth means more clients, more events for you, right?
Mhm.
That's not necessarily what it is, because you can grow your business without increasing your client base, right? And
Absolutely.
maybe those corporate events or the galas or whatever it is, maybe they add an additional event in a year, right?
Mhm.
It's still, you're still working with the same people. It's just another thing, but it's not necessarily growing your client base.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the idea that like bigger is always better. It is in my experience, it has been completely opposite,
Yeah.
like completely opposite, that bigger has not been better, not just for the bottom line, but also for me and my personal life and just
Yeah.
really the life that I want to live.
Well, I think too, when you're looking at events, a lot of those events, especially weddings, happen on weekends. You have a
Yeah,
family. When do your kids' events happen? Weekends, right? So for
yeah,
you, you still want to maintain that family life and the ability to do things with your family and kids, but you also have to maintain the events, right? And that, that's
yeah,
when a lot of those happen. Um, what other
yeah.
like,
Oh, sorry.
yeah, no, I was just gonna ask, um, like with the downsizing, that did give you freedom and other benefits. If you want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, people talking about like the weekends and evenings. Yeah, like a wedding doesn't normally happen on a Monday afternoon. A corporate gala doesn't usually happen at 10 a.m. on a Tuesday, right?
Yeah.
Um, and a lot of people like say to me, "Oh, you must work like every single weekend or whatever." But so my husband's a teacher, so I jokingly say that was one of the best career moves I ever made
Yeah.
because he has the summer off. So
Yeah.
we treat a Wednesday like a Saturday. If I'm doing a wedding on a Saturday, we can, do kind of whatever. We turn the Wednesday into the weekend. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
I've also built a really solid team. Like we have an incredible team. My like most senior planner has been with me for 7 years now. She's exceptional, Loren. She's incredible. She does, just as good or, I often say better
Yeah.
than me
That happens
at
sometimes.
events. It feels like it because
Yeah.
she's like incredibly focused and she brings things to the table and I bring things to the table. So when we work together, um, we complement each other. But we also have like an incredible contracted team. So we have about 15 to 20 staff that we regularly contract to help us just with the execution of events. And some of those people have been with us for 7, 8 years. So we have like really good processes in place. So, like, yes, events are hard and we work really hard and they're long hours, but it's not the same as when I started doing events because I have learned so many things over the years on how to be more efficient and how
Yes.
to, so we're executing, sometimes 3 events in a weekend, but it's not killing me the way that it used to
Yeah.
because we've figured out how to do it smarter and just putting processes in place and putting in company policies as to how things, yeah, just all of it,
Yeah.
so that also helped a lot with in the downsizing
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
So,
I think too, people don't realize behind the scenes how much policies, procedures, and processes. Those are like, when I'm talking to people, I'm like, well, what's your procedure for this? Like, well, we don't really have one. I'm like, well, you need one because then everybody does it the same way. Everybody knows what to do. That's just
mhm,
what it is, right? And you don't even think about it. It becomes second nature because it's just what everybody does. When you don't have that, everybody does their own thing. And that's when you have
mhm.
problems, right? So I love
Well,
hearing that.
especially with events. I mean,
Yeah.
when right, like I mean, the events are all incredibly important to us, but an event is an event. Like weddings have the same elements, right?
Yes.
As we've talked about, weddings have the same elements, pardon me, as a corporate event. So follow the process.
Yeah, exactly. And that's experience and having everything, structured like that. And that gives you freedom to have a life and to do things and to say no, right? Like you said, you can say no to things now because you don't need to have them, which is very
That's right.
freeing.
And you can't be everything. I can't be an event planner to all people, right? I can't be the cheapest and the most efficient and the most experienced and the most, all of those things. Like there are clients that I work really well with, and there are events that are just totally up my alley where it's like, oh, I got this. And then there have been events where I'm like struggling because it's like, this event doesn't speak to me. This event doesn't, it's just not my skill set. And so figuring out what that was and then not having to do those events anymore was like, oh, so liberating.
Yeah. It's like a weight off your shoulders.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to just quickly, because I know that you do a lot with business etiquette, and I think that people don't think about it, especially now we're a lot more casual, but how important it is. So do you want to just kind of touch on, and if people are like, what is business etiquette exactly, just what it is and why it's important? Because it's kind of separate from events in a sense, but we all are living these jobs, whether you're on a Zoom call or you're in an office or you're going to a dinner, for a work dinner, right? That there's things that are really important. So just touch on that a little bit, because I find it so interesting that you have actual like training in this, which I think is so awesome.
I do, yeah. So I would disagree with you in saying that etiquette is not with events, because that is exactly what led me to get into etiquette training, was because I was often the person on the outside of events looking in at awkward things that were happening. And it was like, oh, this feels like a great added service I could offer to my clients, because I see a lot of awkward things happening. I'm on the outside looking in, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So, I did my training at the Protocol School of Washington in Washington, D.C., and then furthered my training at the Charleston School of Protocol in Charleston. So etiquette is like a scary word for people. It sounds pretentious and it sounds like perfection and it sounds stuffy, but like etiquette is really about kindness and respect and social awareness. And that is in business as well.
Yes.
Right? Etiquette, social etiquette, business etiquette, it's all the same. Business can be very social at times. So having etiquette skills it's just really going to help you elevate your personal brand and how you interact with people. It helps to build teamwork, right? By defining inappropriate and appropriate behavior amongst clients and colleagues and friends. So like business etiquette is social etiquette. They're the same thing.
Yeah, it's so true. And I can only imagine some of the things that you've seen at some of these events. But it's true. I remember in university, we did I think actually you did it. I think we figured out one time you did it. It was at the Saskatoon Inn at the top of the inn. And
yes.
And I was in College of Commerce, now Edwards School of Business, but it was everything from, how to talk to people and greet them, and eating at a dinner meeting, and the proper way to actually, we don't really learn that. I mean, you teach your children to eat, but not, what fork to use. And you don't realize how, if you don't know that stuff and someone can tell you don't know it, that could affect your career, right?
Yeah. And I like I always say to people when I'm doing the etiquette training, like, okay, so there are rules, like etiquette rules that are suggestions. They're just suggestions. So you can, there's two different styles of dining that I teach. They're suggestions. It is not that this is a rule that you have to follow. But again, following, using proper etiquette just knows you've covered the bases. So you're always treating everybody with kindness and respect, and being socially aware, which is very important.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. Crystal, do you have a most important lesson that you've learned along the way that you want to share?
Oh boy, how many most important lessons
I
have I
know.
learned?
I feel like you learn a
Um,
new one and you're like, dang, that was important. I should have learned that a long time ago.
yeah, exactly. I think in the way that my business life and my personal life, as an entrepreneur, they're so intertwined, right? A business, you don't just, close your laptop at the end of the day and go home. And I recognize a lot of jobs are like that for sure. But when you're an entrepreneur, it's all on you, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's all on you. So for me, the biggest lesson and wish that I had known this years ago was the learning to say no, like to things, learning that it's like I'm not interested in that event. Why am I doing that event?
Yeah.
So it kind of comes all back to the downsizing and
Yeah.
figuring out in a business, in my business in particular, what are things that I can eliminate so that I can live the life that I want to live with my husband and with my family and my personal life. I work really hard, but I don't. People probably think I work a lot more than I actually do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's entrepreneurship is so funny because people are either like, that person works 20 hours a day,
Hmm.
or it's what does that person do every day? There seems right.
Yeah.
There's no in between. There's no in between.
Isn't
It's
that true?
yeah,
You are bang on with that, where it's like, what do they actually do? Right?
yeah,
I mean, when I work, for me, it's the when I work hard. When I'm at an event, we'll put in a 16-hour day. Like
yeah,
we will absolutely do that. But then I'm not putting in even an 8-hour day the next day. It's,
yeah.
you choose those moments. So I give 100% and then take a few days to not give 100%.
Exactly.
So
That's awesome. And is there anything you wish you had known or wish you had known sooner? Maybe that's the downsizing, but
yeah, the saying no,
yeah.
that I can say no to events and opportunities, that not every opportunity is meant for me.
Yeah. And really, the saying no, and as I say, breaking up with someone, business breaking up, I
Mhm.
literally only learned that probably in my last 2 years of having a business.
Mhm.
Because really, it's like, I'm the same as you. You can't be the cheapest store, have the nicest stuff, be open the latest hours,
Mhm.
have unlimited return policy. Like you just can't do all those things.
Yeah.
And I really just realized it's okay to say no, or it's okay to say, we're not really the store for you,
Yeah.
but you would love this place and this place. Check them out, right?
Yeah.
It it's a
Yeah.
hard lesson,
One
but it's
of
important.
it, it's a really hard lesson,
Yeah.
and I think is maybe this is a generalization, but I think that as women as well, we always want people to like us, right? We
Yes.
don't want to be that person. We want people to like us. We want for people to think that we're nice all the time. And I'll say to people, well, one of my favorite quotes is, "You can be the ripest, juiciest peach in the bunch, and some people still aren't going to like peaches, and that's okay." Well,
Isn't that true?
I'm right. I am not the event planner for everybody, and that's all right.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you so much for being on. This was so good to connect with you again and just learn from you. And I think when people hear downsizing, they get kind of freaked out. But it's not necessarily a negative thing, as you've told us. It's actually been really great for you. So thank you for sharing with us. Where can people find you? I know that especially business etiquette, I think they need to look that up for sure. But maybe we've got some people getting married or something. Where's the best place for them
Yeah.
to find you?
Uh, so our website, there is a little bit of information about the etiquette training that we offer as well, obviously as the event planning, so just RSVP Event Design, and our social media, same thing, just RSVP Event Design. Instagram, we're a little more active with weddings, I would say. So we're, people like to look at the pretty pictures. Sometimes corporate events don't always have all the pretty pictures, although the galas
They
do.
do. Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And on Facebook as well. But we do probably upload more pictures of weddings onto Instagram and Facebook.
Yeah. And you do beautiful events. I don't ever plan to get married again. So I had 4 weddings. This is never happening again. But if I need a gala, you're my girl, Crystal.
Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Well, thank you for being on. And for everybody listening, we will see you on the next episode. Thanks for listening to Winning. Be sure to subscribe to get all of our new episodes. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others. Post about it on social media and leave a rating and review wherever you listen to Winning. To catch all of the latest from us, you can follow Winning Podcast on Instagram at winning_podcast, Facebook at Winning Podcast, and on Twitter at Winning Pod. Winning was created and is produced by me, Mackenzie Killshaw. Music created by Summer Furby. Editing by Seth Armstrong. Special thanks to Shauna Foster for voicing our opening. And of course, a huge thank you to this episode's guest. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you on the next episode.